Yo, what is good, peasants? My name is JB, back here today with a bit of a different video for Pokemon Unite. Today we're going to be taking a look at your hot takes for Pokemon Unite, and I'm going to be reacting to them and giving my opinions on what you guys have to say about the game. Most of these came from my community tab, so be sure to check that out every now and then. I drop, some questions, a lot of polls. We have some fun over there, as well as, a couple of these came from my Discord server, so be sure to join that in the description down below. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this. I think you guys are either watching some Charizard or Dragapult. I don't remember which one. I haven't decided yet, but gameplays, whatever. Let's go ahead and hop right into the first take, and we're going to start off with a bit of a scorcher, sort of, from a good friend of mine, Mr. CB Marcus. Yeah, he has a few takes, but you see that little spiel right there, right next to his name? You too can get one of those if you click the join button. And the only reason I bring that up is because, well, I want more members, but two, I am one member away from a brand new emote slot. So I don't know, man. If you're the next person to member up, let me know, and you can decide the next emote for chat. So yeah, that's I don't know. Just a little bit of plug. Anyway, let's go ahead and actually get into the takes now. Marcus says, cold take, but Pokemon Unite needs a type chart, mini game portion before Zapdos, and after second Dread, a berry item slot, and a 6th player. So some of these are a little bit weird. You can see how long it's been since Marcus has played the game. He's saying Zapdos and Dread. But so type chart, I think is a horrible idea. I think it'd be fun for like a secondary game mode, like a boss rush or a Pika party or something like that. I think it'd be fun for that. But I think adding that to the main game would be horrible. Minigame portion before Ray and after second bottom Reggie. I think that's just called top Reggie, where your teammates, the minigame is, will your teammates die trying to push Elecki into a tier 2? I think that's kind of the minigame there. I mean, I don't know what that would be, but I mean, sure, why not? Now, the last two, I can kind of see a little something here. We'll skip to a 6th player. I think that would just be chaos. Could you imagine some of the disgusting team comps you can get away with a 6th player? I don't even want to think about it. But a berry item slot, I'm kind of here for that, honestly. I'm kind of here for a berry item slot, like, something like a, like just having an orange berry or like a citrus berry just always in your pocket, or having like I don't know, like a custard berry or some sort of, like, there's all sorts of like Rost berries or, what's the paralyzed cherry berry? Like, if you're getting stunned, you can cleanse one stun. Like, I'm all for that. I am so all for that. So, I don't know, berry item slot could be cool. Let's go ahead and get into some other takes, though. Heading over to this next one, Fansite. Go check him out, by the way. Great content creator. His hot take is that a majority of players don't realize they are losing due to a lack of awareness instead of skill. And I fully agree with this. You could be the most mechanically gifted player in the world, but if your ass is dead at 215, you're useless. Like, you could be hitting the most crazy Decidueye snipes or the best, Blissey ults or whatever. You could be the most mechanically gifted player in the world, but if you're solo hitting Elecki while there's a 45 bot lane, you're useless to your team. And a lot of players do tend to fall into this thing, like, well, I'm doing good here, like, why am I the problem? Why am I losing? Well, it's because you're not paying attention to what's going on the map, and you're not paying attention to where you need to be. It's micro versus macro. Now, I don't actually know the difference between those two things, but that's what it is. So yeah, people, like I said, you can be great at the game, you can be great mechanically, but if you don't have the IQ to know when and where you're needed on the map, and when and where you should be doing stuff like farming versus taking a team fight, I don't know, it doesn't really matter how mechanically gifted you are. Next up, we have Hardest Traveler 96 saying, Crustle is severely underrated, has one of the best Unite moves in the game, and can do way more damage than you'd expect. Just doesn't really work as a defender normally would. They also think Espeon was never bad, it just needed to be less diveable, which it is now, and Azu is extremely good, and no one seems to realize how hard it can carry. So I agree with some of these points. I don't think Crustle is necessarily underrated. I think it's properly rated. I think it's pretty bad, and most people do consider it pretty bad, but I do think its Unite move is phenomenal. I think it has a really good Unite move, and you can do a lot more damage than you normally would. The thing with Crustle is, like you said, it doesn't really work as a defender normally would. Yeah, that's true. Crustle is really bad in team fights. And call me crazy, but I think a defender is supposed to be good in team fights. Crustle is so squishy, especially if you're playing the Shell Smash build, that it doesn't really work as a defender. It can't really take hits. Rock Tomb's nice, but it's very situational, and pretty much everything in the game can just kind of avoid a Rock Tomb. So it's a cool moveset, it's just not exactly great. Crustle is really more of an all-arounder or a speedster than a defender. So yeah, if you're playing Crustle, you should be going for high damage rather than, tanking, or you should be trying to score and just trying to still farm. But that's not really always super valuable. It goes back to, having a lack of awareness. So yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately where a lot of Crystal players fall into. You can really do a lot of damage in fights, in team fights with Crystal. You can really carry a lot of games if you play it as an all-around, if you play it like I'm a champ or something like that. So, you know, in that mold of just getting in, diving backlines, deleting squishies, stuff like that. So it has value there. Espeon was never bad, it just needed to be less diveable, which it is now. I do think Espeon was pretty bad prior to this buff, and I think it's in a good place where it's not necessarily overpowered, but it's just incredibly good. I do think it's overpowered in coordinated play in 5 stacks because you will never outsecure an Espeon if you give it a level lead. Like, you will never, ever outsecure it, and it can just control a lane in 5 stacks. And you can do that to some extent in solo queue, but it is a little bit more punishable in like a chaotic sort of solo queue playstyle where if you can catch an Espeon out, it's still kind of a sitting duck. So yeah, I think it is a lot better than it used to be, but I do think it was bad. And then Ozu is really good now, and no one seems to realize how hard it can carry. I would agree with that if Zacian didn't exist. Ozu was just hard countered by that character, and pretty much, to be fair, everything kind of is. I do think Aquatail is actually really strong. The healing on it is super good. So has a really good Unite move. So has a really solid like early lane phase, especially if you get your stacks in early and you get evolved early. Like a level 4 Ozu is actually really strong in lane, so it's fine. I think it's like, I think I had it in either A-, B+ or B tier. Like, it's a solid middle of the pack Pokemon. All right. Next up, we have Big Duck saying Zera Aura was never broken. And I have to disagree with this take. Pretty much just because Zera Aura was broken when the game first came out. Like, Zera Aura was so strong back then. And I honestly think Zera Aura is, I don't want to say bad, good now, but I do think it's a lot better than most people give it credit for. I think Discharge is so damn strong. It just falls into the same category as a lot of things where it's very weak to stuns and it's just hard countered by Zacian, which everything is, like I said earlier. But it's not, I don't think it's the worst Pokemon in the game like a lot of people make it out to be. I think it's like a solid, decent pick personally. Still has a really strong Unite move. I still think Wild Charge is one of the most overpowered moves in the entire game. It just becomes completely untargetable. It's basically Talonflame Fly that shreds tanks. Like, Wild Charge is still broken. A lot of people have been clamoring forever to give this Pokemon 5/7/9, so it gets its plus moves at level 13. Which I can see it. I definitely agree it should have its plus. It shouldn't get its second plus move at level 14. You rarely ever hit level 14 on, you know, a lot of characters. Granted, you should on carries, but I don't know, man. I'm not a huge fan of people saying this, giving Zera Aura that buff, because I think if you give Zera Aura Discharge at level 7 as it stands now, we're gonna have like another Absol on our hands that's gonna be completely busted, because you could easily get that every single gank, every single jungle, every single time before level 7. Before 7 minutes rather. Yeah, I think giving Zera Aura 5/7/9 as it stands right now would break the character. So it needs a nerf, but then you don't really want to nerf the character because it's not that good. So I don't know, Zera Aura is just in a weird spot. But I do think Zera Aura was definitely broken in release. Next up, we have Ash saying Gardevoir lane / jungle greater than Cinder's Desi lane jungle. And this is another sort of multi-layered thing. I do think Gardevoir is the best character out of these three, and it's not particularly close. I think Gardevoir is way better than Cinderace and Desi right now, particularly because of Spoon. I think Spoon kind of needs nerfed personally, but I will say though, the Decidueye in lane is better than Gardevoir in lanes, just because the Decidueye has a better, you know, first levels 1 through 5. Now, as soon as Gardevoir evolves into Kirlia is better than Dartrix, but I do think Decidueye is actually super underappreciated, super underrated. Now, Decidueye does fall into the same category of Zera Aura or any other character that just gets dove on and is dead. Like, a lot of characters, like Decidueye is really bad against a lot of things, but Decidueye is also really good against a lot of things. It's just tough. I do think Desi is a really solid laner. It's really good at preventing stacks. It's a really good stacker itself. Has really strong autos. I think the Decidueye is good in lane. Like, that's a take I'm gonna die on the hill of. It's played in tournaments. It's played by the best players in the world in lane. Obviously, you know, they'll give it jungle later in game, but the best teams in the world are playing Decidueye lane for a reason. Like, it's a good character. Like, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Now, is your random solo queue Decidueye bot lane running Drain Crown, Razor Claw, and fucking Troy Specs good? Of course not, but Decidueye is a good laner. Cinderace, though, terrible in lane, always has been, always will be. Gardevoir is still, like I said, the best character out of these three by far, but Decidueye is a better laner than Gardevoir, in my opinion. So, yeah, this is Gardevoir, best jungler, best Pokemon of the three by far. Decidueye is a good laner, though. There's my reaction to that. Next up, we have Blastoop saying Charizard and Talon are good Pokemon if you play them right. You can kind of say that about any Pokemon, to be fair, but I do think Charizard is just straight up bad. because it just does no damage with its Unite move these days. So yeah, I don't think Charizard's good. And then Talon, it has its moments, but it's overall just kind of whatever. Talonflame has the worst player base in Unite. People who play Talonflame are absolutely useless, so I think they're both pretty bad. But you can say that about any Pokemon. You can pop off, you can have a massive game, you can win with anything, but I do think, you know, those characters are considered bad for a reason. All right, next up we have Ghost Uchiha, excuse me. Espeon is much better early game, but late game, Delphox with Mystical Fire clears. I don't even think that's really a hot take. I think that's just kind of true. Espeon is incredible early game, it's incredible laning phase, but Delphox, well, it's not that Espeon is bad late game. I just think these are characters with two different roles, because typically Delphox is a jungler, especially if you're playing Mystical Fire. Mystical Fire Delphox is an incredible jungler, I think one of the best junglers in the game, whereas Espeon is not a jungler. I've been seeing a lot of jungle Espeons in my game for some reason. Don't play that Pokemon in jungle, it doesn't need it. I mean, you can, but it doesn't need it. It gets level 4 basically just off of its own farm by like 940, basically. Not 940, but like by 9 minutes you should have level 4 every game on Espeon, so don't play that character in jungle. But yeah, I just think they're different characters. I mean, I do think Delphox is generally a better late game because its Unite move is better, but I mean, Espeon's still phenomenal all around. I don't really agree or disagree with this. I just think they're different roles. You can't really compare the two, but I get where he's coming from. Hayden, with the Shiny Spill, so consider becoming a member, by the way. You don't need to play meta Pokemon to win. And yeah, that goes back to Blasttube's statement as well. Yeah, you don't need to play meta Pokemon to win. You can pop off and win with really anything in the game. So yeah, that's true. Wagoba saying roll out Wiggly, hard counter Zacian. No, it doesn't. Nothing hard counter Zacian. Zacian is broken. But I mean, I guess, you know, Q-Charm / I don't know, knocking it up with rollout, kind of, but I mean, do you want to get that close to Zacian? I don't. All right, and last but not least, we have Tomas saying that Sableye, Espeon, and Mew are balanced, and then physical attackers, Desi, Greninja, Cinder, etc. are mediocre AF. Play a special attacker or all-arounder if you want to jungle. I'll start with the second take first, and I generally agree that special attackers are better junglers these days, particularly Glaceon, Gardevoir, and Delphox. Those are probably 3 of the best junglers in the game right now. But if you're gonna play Greninja, Cinder, and Desi, which are all still extremely viable Pokemon, especially in solo queue, like, you could still drop into any game with Cinderace and do 100,000+ damage easily just by pressing the A button. So I get why he's saying that they are mediocre AF. They're just simply outclassed at the moment, but you can still pop off with all 3 of those characters, just like we can with anything. But I will go ahead and agree that, yeah, special attackers are definitely better junglers at the moment. That's just because of how the meta is. It's so, you know, fat, so many high HP targets are in the game, and Spoon is absolutely broken. And then for all-arounders, yeah, Water Bear is a fantastic jungler. Dragonite, even Tyranitar, all great junglers. So yeah, there are better junglers than those 3 right now, but I don't know, you can still play well with them, especially in solo queue. Like, Greninja's always going to be a good solo queue Pokemon. Desi's fine. We already talked about it a little bit, and yeah, like I already mentioned Cinder as well. And then the last one, he says Sableye, Espeon, and Mew are balanced. Yes and no. We'll start off with Espeon. I think Espeon is actually pretty okay. Like I said earlier, it's completely broken in competitive play. It's one of the best competitive Pokemon easily in like the 5-stack tournament meta. In solo queue, it's deal withable. You could definitely get destroyed by an Espeon. It's a very, very, very good Pokemon. I will say I probably lean towards slightly overpowered rather than balanced, but I don't really think you need to nerf Espeon too hard. I think maybe just lowering the damage on its boosted auto attack was probably bring it back in line. I think the range buff was fine though. All right, and now for Sableye. Here's my take on this character. It's still one of the absolute most annoying Pokemon to play in the entire game. The problem is having a Sableye on your team often feels like a detriment, because I would rather have any other supporter on my team, any supporter who could actually heal me or actually give me shields, or like legally, like I would rather have literally any other supporter on my team, because I know Sableye is going to be non-existent in team fights most of the time. Sableye is going to be just spinning the entire game, backcapping. Now, can it provide value to your team? Of course, you know, stunning a target and being able to take it down, but you know, that leans itself to more coordinated play. Whereas in solo queue, give me a Clefable, give me a Blissey, give me a Comfey every single time over Sableye. I will say it's probably pretty balanced, but it falls into the Crustle / Talonflame trap of most people who play Sableye have no idea how to play it. And then for Mew is not balanced at all. Mew is still incredibly broken, so that's the best early game in the game. Incredible all throughout the match. I play a ton of Mew. It's one of my mains. It's not balanced at all. It's broken. But let's go ahead and end with a personal take of my own. Now, this is gonna ruffle some feathers, perhaps. Actually, I have to. One, X-Speed is still the most overpowered thing in the game. Nerf X-Speed, please, for the love of God. And then my actual take that I want to end the video with is I don't think they should ever bring draft mode to Master Rank. I think that is a horrible idea. I see people clamoring for it all the time, and I'm like, we don't trust our randoms to not play Choice Specs Greninja. Do we really trust our randoms to pick something good? Like, you're putting the power in the hands of solo queue players to not pick or not draft pick 4 attackers. Like, team comps will get so much worse doing drafts. And that's without even mentioning every single time a new Pokemon is released, it's going to get banned. You will never be able to play a new Pokemon in your ranked games ever again. I think it would be a horrible idea to bring to Master Rank. I think or just competitive in general, I think you need to make a completely separate ladder for draft mode, which I would be all for. I would be totally all for. But bringing it to the regular ranked ladder is a horrible, 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 horrible idea that they should not implement, because we don't trust our solo queue teammates to pick a good character and to play well. Why would we trust them to pick good Pokemon and not ban out every new release so you can never play it? That's me personally. I think it's a horrible idea. Let me know what you think of that take, as well as all these other takes in the comments down below, and leave your, also current hot takes for a potential part 2. Yeah, this went a little bit longer than expected. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the random videos that played in the background, and I will catch you all in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Take it easy, guys. Peace.